All right, good morning, everybody, and good morning. It is a Wednesday morning. I don't know why all the time when I'm talking about the show, Tuesday jumps in my mouth all the time. I got to correct myself. It's not Tuesday, it's every Wednesday. And we have Joseph Lee right here this morning. Joseph, I have talked to your number one fan, bowling, Michelle A. She's probably on right now. It said,
Also,
She said, mental health, mental health, mental health. I said, I'm gonna have you on the show because I think you have mental health talking about mental health, but she is always there. A few others really enjoy that we have you on board all the time.
well, I really enjoy the fact that they enjoy the show and enjoy hearing from them and comments. And it is Mental Health Awareness Month, so every day this week, I'm going to go ahead and talk about a mental health issue. Sometime today, we'll talk about anxiety and noticing some of the signs and the type of anxieties and why it can be an issue. So I think it's something that a lot of people experience and that we all experience from time to time. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing either, but we'll talk about it as well.
Yeah, I know about that because the past couple of weeks I have been at issues here at the station, messing around doing this, doing that. I always say it's a work in progress when you're doing something because to
Right.
me, you think something is complete, but nothing is really never complete.
No.
That's how I see it. People say, I completed that. I said, so what you doing next? It's not complete.
Hmm.
I let everybody know that everything is not really complete. It's always a work. I got that from my mom. She always say, life is a work in progress.
It is. There's a lot of wisdom in talking to
Yeah.
uh, parents, and they've been around. They may not know all the technical terms that we use, but they have a lot of wisdom. I tap into a lot of the wisdom of elders in talking to clients. So
Yeah. And they do. And a lot I was telling somebody the other day, when I was growing up, my parents was, I guess, teaching me and tooling me how to be a parent. But when you're a kid, you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it at all. And then I said, I told somebody when I was teaching, I would tell the class about the Big Bang Theory.
hmm.
And they would say the Big Bang Theory is that when it said, no, that's when it starts. No, it's none of that. So what is it, Mr. Gordon? I said, that's when you hear that giant pop, and that's your head popping out your butt, and you realize what you're here for and take action for the things that you do. And I was telling them that. They looked at me like I was crazy. But what I'm getting at later on in life, when I had my first son born, I knew what my parents was talking about. So that kicked in. All them years hitting inside me, the things they were telling me to do, I was actually doing it.
Yeah.
So things like that happen. I don't know if we got off base on that. I just want to say that right there, that
Yeah.
people hold things inside them until they have to use them. And what I discovered, you should use them when you get them. Don't wait until you need them.
Well,
So
unfortunately, a lot of those lessons we don't know the significance of, and we don't think our parents know what they're talking about. Right.
yeah.
There's a sign that one of the counselors say, yeah, teenagers, move out right now while you know everything.
Yeah, I
I
see
used to
that.
crack up every time I used to walk in there because, you think because you've been in this insulated environment so many years that you know everything as a teenager. And, we thought we knew until and I always say you don't know everything uh, or anything until you have a mortgage, a car note, and
Yes.
you don't have a child that you have to provide for. Then you can talk to me about knowing something.
Yeah, that's so
Uh,
true.
and they're like, "What are you talking about, Mr. Lee?" I say, "You'll see one day. You'll see what it's like to know something at
Yeah.
that point. And then when your body starts deteriorating a little bit, you have to start picking the activities that you're going to focus on. So you get a little smarter in life just by default, right? For
I'm
some
a
people,
witness. I'm a witness to that. Your body getting older and stuff. I'm staying active in what I'm doing. And when I retired, I refused to keep a remote in my hand and lay down and watch TV. I am always moving around from one end of the city to the other, doing things for the community. I got to stay busy.
listen, man, I can attest to that. You're a busy guy. You do a lot of great things in the community. So it's good to work with you and know you. So.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot to get into. So we're going to get into the mental health issue, or are you going to get into the current events. What are we going to do today?
Let's get into the mental health issues right about now, because
You need some coffee, Ryan? What are we talking about?
I haven't had coffee in 2 days because I was fasting yesterday, going to the doctor. I got up this morning, started doing some things, and I don't have a cup of coffee, but I could wait another hour before I get a cup of coffee.
Okay, all right. Well, I haven't had one today. I usually drink tea or something, but I'm just drinking my water today, trying to do a healthy thing. So
Yeah,
we'll see how that works out. But
yeah.
so I want to talk about anxiety. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've worked with a lot of people with anxiety. I've been certified to treat folks with anxiety. And I just want to kind of give a definition of what anxiety is. Anxiety is the body's reaction to a stressful or perceived stressful situation, right? So your body's response to anxiety is, a couple of things. So you could have increased heart rate. And let me just say, I don't know, some people might know what the fight or flight response is, but it's kind of like your body goes into a fight or flight response, meaning that anxiety is a way of the body trying to protect itself or prepare for a perceived issue or threat or whatever the case may be. And there's basically three types of stress, right? There's anticipatory stress. So that's the stress that you anticipate something's going to happen. Like if you're in school, you have a final exam, or if you have to go to a hospital, have a surgery, or some bad event, something that you perceive as a bad event. In the future, you have situational stress. When you're in a situation or something that happens immediately or whatever in that particular situation, there's stress. And then there's the dangerous one as well. All these can be dangerous, but there's one that's really a problem, which is chronic stress. This is stress that, just continues to stay, you continue to live under, you continue to endure this type of stress. So that anxiety, it's kind of like if you think about anxiety as a truck engine running, car and truck engine running, and just running in overdrive long periods of time, right? It will cause different issues, right? So it causes increased heart rate. So there could be heart disease. There could be other psychological issues that come from anxiety, depression, delusional thought processes, because you start focusing on whatever that perceived issue is. So it's really important to kind of learn how to manage stress. And there's also other causes that can exacerbate stress. So lack of sleep, your diet, right? Maybe too much caffeine, that can cause increased stress, increased anxiety, and just your thought process, of how you look at situations. So one of the things you can do to kind of deal with stressful situation is first identify what's causing you the stress. A lot of times we just deal with things. We just keep moving, and we start feeling, not good, or we realize we're not sleeping at night. Those are signs that you're dealing with anxiety, right? So once you realize that, you can change your thought process and how you look at a particular situation, because not all stress is bad. Some stress, it's a natural process. So if you're getting ready to do a speech, if you're going to take a test, if you got some situation, your body wants to do its best, or you psychologically want to do your best at that. So some stress is good. Athletes all the time, being nervous before a game isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's going to put your body in a more heightened sense of alertness and all that. But after the game, if you're still stressed, after the test, if you're still stressed and you're not calming down, that's where it falls into that chronic stress. It can cause issues and problems and whatnot. So just knowing some physical signs of stress: headaches, loss of appetite, teeth grinding at night. That's one you can be stressed at night, believe it or not, and cause dental issues, all kind of things. Some of the behavioral signs can be forgetfulness, increased use of alcohol or other influences, which especially for like depression is bad. Alcohol is depressant. Depression, you're depressed. You can see where it goes from there, right?
Yeah.
And alcohol also affects your judgment. And the first thing it affects is your judgment. So being depressed with your judgment impaired could be a bad combination, right? So insomnia, that's another sign. Some other signs would be if you're unnecessarily irritable, impatient, those are signs of stress. So, just driving around in San Antonio, a lot of people are under anxiety,
Yeah,
right? Because that's all three: situational stress because you're in the situation, anticipatory because you got to get in the situation, and chronic stress, right? Because it's happening all the time. So anytime you get in a row, but how you deal with it, giving yourself more time to deal with things. There's going to be probably an accident, something in the road, something, but calm down. So some of the ways I help people deal with stress, right? If you're having anxiety, again, I try to think about and putting the situation in perspective. Most situations we focus on and make bigger than what they are, right? So if you really think about the situation, think about what is the likely outcome of the situation. If you've been through situations like that before, tests, whatever the case may be, and instead of just stressing about it, do something about it, right? If it's a test, organize your time so that you can study more, have a test taking strategy, whatever. Realize that no matter what, you're going to get through the situation. 99% of life, I think somewhere I heard that is attitude. Your attitude towards something is huge. Instead of saying you're anxious, say you're excited about the situation.
Yeah.
And that can change your whole thought process and going, man, I got this speech. I'm excited to come out and speak on the radio show. Not anxious because, oh man, all these people are going to be listening to me. I'm excited to get this information out because I might actually help somebody, right?
Right.
So just changing your thought process. But again, making sure you get adequate rest. Your diet plays an important role. And believe it or not, physical activity is key in helping to control anxiety. Now, also keep in mind, anxiety, if it's unchecked, it can turn into a lot of different issues. One of which is depression. All right. So, and then from depression, can go into other things, right? So one of the things I get people to do is do some type of, you already said it, I got to stay active, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stay active. Swimming for me is a good way to deal with depression or anxiety because it takes your mind off of it. You jump in that water, you can be worried about something else, but when you jump in that water, you have an immediate concern.
Yeah.
So, and then it's also relaxing. So, get you a membership somewhere, where it has a nice pool, swim. I guarantee you, when you get done doing a few laps, your anxiety is going to be lower because you're coming out of that fight or flight response, and then you're able to think more clearly. You're able to function more clearly, and that's a good way to deal with anxiety. Make sure you watch your caffeine, sugar. Making sure that you're getting adequate rest. Those are all good ways of dealing with anxiety. So
I got a question for you.
mm-hmm.
I hear people talking about this all the time in the work environment, because a lot of it's sometimes in the work environment. People are more concerned about their other peers when they do career. Why do they do that all the time? That gets on my last nerve. You always have that going. I say, why are you paying attention to them?
You just hit the nail on the head. We can actually pile more stress and anxiety on ourselves.
Yeah.
By worrying about other people's actions. Listen, that's my job to worry about some people's actions and behaviors, right? And to help them come up with a solution. You're not the therapist at work, most folks, unless you're a therapist at work.
Yeah.
Don't add more stress to your day, right? I have to stop myself all the time from working. When I see something, I go, why is that person doing that? I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not on the clock right now. Let me, but it's a response. But don't worry about those things you can't change. A lot of things, and this is another thing. What I always tell people, and you bring up a good point for stress and anxiety. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you are 100% in control of how you react to it. So I might need to repeat that again. You're not in control of everything that happens to you, but you're 100% in control of how you react to it. So you got that person that's getting on your nerves, doing things that don't make sense, doing things that are annoying you. Guess what? Don't give them the power to annoy you anymore. Go, you know what? That dude is a character. I would envision, especially when I was in the military, we'd have little techniques that we would do when people would be you know, I'm on the air, so now let me say this the right way. Not liked, right? uh, so we would, we would just count at the time. They would say something ridiculous and see it, and we'd have like competitions to see how many dumb things they were going to say in a day,
Yeah.
or if they're going to do the dumb thing that we don't like that day and be like, here we go again, and just have fun ways of dealing with the situation and instead of it annoying you. I did want to say another way of dealing with stress too and anxiety is learning how to do therapeutic breathing, right? Doing a 5 count in, filling your lungs up completely, and breathing out through your mouth on a 5 count. So it kind of looks like out through your mouth, doing that about 10 times. Now, the more you do that, even when you're not stressed, when you are stressed, your body will know, oh, we're doing the calm down thing again. And your brain actually likes to be in what we call homeostasis. It likes to be calm. So once you start doing that, the more and more you do that, the calmer you'll be.
You know, you just said something there that I started doing. I'm a bowler, y'all. I like bowling. And I found out when I approach the lane, I'm doing my breathing almost exactly like you described it. And I
Yeah.
walk up there and I will let it out before I release the ball.
Mhm.
And I started doing that and I'm more relaxed and seem like I'm in more control of what I'm doing.
No,
You
it
know,
doesn't seem like, Ron, you are more in control of of what you're doing, because I teach people that when they take tests uh, to deal with test anxiety and then to come up with a strategy. I teach when I had some professional athletes, I taught them how to do that breathing technique, and it works because when you come out of that fight or flight, your higher level of reasoning and functioning, it works.
yeah,
Remember when you were little? I'm not gonna put your business out there, but when people get in trouble when they're little and go to the principal's office, and you're sitting there and you go, man, why did I do that? That was so stupid, right? Now I'm
mhm,
gonna get in trouble. Now I'm gonna be on punishment. Now I'm gonna be suspended, whatever. That's because you've come out of fight or flight at that point, right? And now your other higher reasoning is kicking in. Well, if you do that breathing technique in stressful situations or before stressful situations, you can actually change the outcome of the situation or think about how you want to react, right? Instead of just reacting.
yeah,
That's the key point there. So breathe is important, and there's also an app. Now there's all these apps out here,
yeah,
but the Calm app, the CALM, Calm, they have some phenomenal stuff to get you some noise silencing AirPods or earphones, and that can really help you to kind of do that breathing technique. Listen to something like that. I listen to it pretty frequently at night, right before I go to bed or while I'm trying to go to sleep, to keep me focusing on something relaxing instead of all the things that I've been working with or dealing with. And that's one of the things. Remember, you told me there was a question last week about how we as therapists unpack and deal with all these stressful situations.
yes,
A lot of us have rituals and things that we have to do to kind of de-stress, and that Calm app is one of my techniques. There's a ton of different songs, and there's a lot of entertainers that give their techniques. I think LeBron James is on there talking about how he stays mentally focused and all that. So there's some really good information and resources out there. You just have to look. Right.
Now, one thing that I do, believe it or not, when I'm writing or doing something here for the radio station, I completely cut out the music. And what I put on, to me, what I like listening to is rain and thunder in the background. And I got
Yeah.
a whole bunch of that. I just put it on. And
Yeah.
that eases my mind. And I just go into a different zone. My wife came and said, why you want to rain that bad? You listen to her? I said, no, this calms me down for what I'm doing because I listen to music all day and now I want to focus on some things I want to do. Like if I'm writing the commercial or if I'm putting a flyer together, I put the music to the side because I listen to it 24 hours a day. I'm listening to music. And that right there, that calms me down. And so I was telling my wife the other day, I said, now you at work, y'all, that remember, I heard this from somebody a long time ago. Control the controllables.
And on that note, I got to end with this, and I also lead with this. This is one of the best ways to control stress and anxiety.
There you go.
So the book of Psalms, Proverbs, I call it the two P's. Now this is for my believers and folks that need a little wisdom and guidance sometimes, and peace. I always say the power of the two P's. Read Psalms and Proverbs. I guarantee you're going to be calmer after reading Psalms, and you're going to be smarter after you read Proverbs, right?
Yes.
So that's that wisdom I was talking about back in the day. That's the ultimate wisdom. And that's the wisdom that a lot of our elders were getting their wisdom from, right?
Right.
So, and believe it or not, the rock still works,
It has not changed.
It has not changed. So, I don't have to, I don't have to take the credit for that.
It's right
Take
there.
credit for that, and that needs to be given to our kids. Okay, that needs to be given to the youth. I try to work it in as best I can. I know there's supposedly a separation of church and state, but I actually made the argument to a lot of schools when I did training with the Texas Board of school board members. What is this thing? Let me see who was I talking to? They gave me a nice award here. The Texas Caucus of Black School Board members, like that, right?
Yeah.
I said, remember, when did these school shootings start? I think we talked about this, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it was after the numbers really dramatically increased after we took God out of the public schools, right? We took the ability to pray out of public schools, and unfortunately, that was some of the only time some of the kids got to be exposed to faith or be exposed to God.
Yeah.
And when you take God out, what moves in? So, so if you look at it through that spiritual lens and a counseling lens, it's kind of easy to see kind of what happened. So what I suggested is we need to start praying again. Even if they don't let you pray during the week, come out there and pray and cover that school, on the weekend, on Saturday. They can't stop you from praying.
Walk around the school grounds. Just walk around.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, have done it,
Yeah.
So, all I can say is we gotta get back to some of those things that are going to anchor us and give us some solitude, some peace, and actually, can help guide and provide future generations some help as well. So
what we're looking at basically is going back to the basics.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It really is going back to the basics in a lot of senses, and really understanding that there is wisdom in a lot of the older teachings and things, but there's a lot of good current things that work too. I mean, the Calm app and doing different cognitive behavioral thought techniques, things of that nature, making sure you're getting adequate sleep. All those things are great. Minimizing techniques. I have this saying about situations, right? When somebody's really stressed out, and I know the situation is passing, I'll say, view the situation like it's a piece of dust on the cell of on the butt of an ant walking off into the distance. And you visualize that.
Yeah.
And you think about that situation, you think it's this big, and it's really that big.
Yeah.
And once you kind of put it in perspective, the stress goes away, right?
Yeah. So going back to stress, anxiety, and all that, I was in a class called social skills years ago, and that opened my eyes up because one thing came across when they said that we have a tendency of reacting on our emotions that we say right off. So he sat there and told us what you'll do. He said, don't react, think about it, then respond.
Yeah, one of the things, and we can get into this. We were on anxiety today.
Yeah.
but when we start getting into the segment on what we can do for the kids and whatnot, I do a whole segment on proactive versus reactive thinking. And we have to train our children to learn how to be proactive versus reactive. because the results are devastating when you react without thinking. So many things can go wrong because you haven't allowed your brain to engage before you put your body in motion, right?
Yeah.
And that's also devastating, not just in the behavioral sense. It's a disaster in terms of the financial sense as well. All right, we're being conditioned to react. Every time you cut on the news or cut on TV, what do you see? Commercials, right?
Yeah.
They want you to go out and buy, go out and buy, go out and buy. Well, if you talk about like car commercials, use that example. If you go out and buy the brand new car, and as soon as you drive it off the lot, you've already lost a few $1,000s just because you bought the new car that year.
Yeah.
That same car next year is going to be thousands of dollars less. But you just have to be proactive enough to go, okay, I really like this car. I'm doing research, make sure it's going to meet my needs. I'll get it the next year. I'll let somebody else, the one that reacts, take that initial hit. I'll get the same car the next year and, save all that money. So talking to all you impulse shoppers, right? don't always react. Plan out what you're going to do, right? So I'm not going to talk about which sex has more problems with doing that, but
I will. No, I'm kidding. I won't.
No, we ain't gonna do that. We want to keep all of our listeners happy. I'm not going to make this a gender issue, but I will say
someone out there saying, "Go for it, do it."
If the shoe fits, no, I'll let you do it after my show, after my hour, right? But hey, like I say, one of my mentors used to say, if the shoe fits, wear it. If it don't, put it in the closet. You know what I'm saying? Or put it wherever you put your shoes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's it with anxiety. There's a lot more we can go into, but I just wanted to give a good definition of it, some good techniques, some good things on how to deal with it. There's more. There's a lot of different things you can do, and if people are interested, we can talk about that further. Some techniques on how to deal with the stress and anxiety. Everybody should be familiar with what stress and anxiety is now. We're still going through this pandemic. It was a lot worse a few years ago, obviously, but we all understand what stress and anxiety is now. And some people managed it well, some people didn't, but reach out, reach out. Also, I want to let people know that new resource, doggone it, I think it's a pound 988. I'm gonna have to look at it, but it's the new suicide prevention resource. And if you correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's pound 988, and I think it's active in most states.
Because they did launch that nationwide.
Yeah. So, there's a resource if somebody's feeling like harming themselves, they've gotten to the tail, they're deep into depression and feel like that's the only out. It's never the only out. One thing we say about suicide awareness, and I think it's always good to talk about, is that you never want a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Right. And that's what it is. It's a permanent solution, and it's not a very good one. Because there's a lot better things that you can focus on and do than whatever the situation is that you've allowed to be distorted in your mind to put you in that situation. And I know it can be painful, but that's why it's important to reach out to folks like myself, therapists, licensed therapists. Say
it again.
Licensed therapists.
Yes.
That know how to help treat folks, or different agencies or whatnot. They have licensed therapists. It's very important as we see all these issues that we get people the help that they need. And telehealth options are great. That's one of the things in Uvalde. I'm so excited that people are doing. They're getting all kind of resources there through telehealth, and other companies are offering unprecedented solutions in terms of counseling options to the community. And it's, hopefully that will continue to be a help and a blessing.
Yeah, I think that what the pandemic has done, you're talking about telehelp and all that, video, everything is instant nowadays. You can, you get on it and talk to somebody right away, and you don't have to wait to 2 and 3 weeks to be seen.
Yeah. The average wait now for a therapist is 6 months.
Wow.
That's the average weight, right? So yeah, business is good, but it's not good for the right reason, right?
Yeah.
So this office that we're looking at right now, this scene right here has been seen all over the world
Yeah.
during the pandemic. I've had clients, from pretty much every country, every continent, through different online platforms, through my private practice. And it's an honor to be able to do that. I'm glad that resource is there. I was a little bit ahead of the curve before the pandemic by doing online counseling. So it definitely is a convenient option, one that I'll keep with my private practice, for good, obviously, and where I can stay contacted with my office in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then my office here, and then for my clients that are out of state, and out of the United States. So
Yeah. Well, one thing the pandemic did do, it opened up everybody's eyes. To me, it did that. Wow, this is real. Because if you look at some of the movies that was written talking about pandemic and all this going on, some of those movies was right dead on, except for the extreme they did by locking down the town and the army comes in, you can't get out. But some of the movies was to me were ahead of the curve. Like they wrote what was going to happen in the future.
well, in some countries, Ron, that was even accurate. There were some places where you couldn't leave. Think about it. Even though maybe the army didn't roll in on some of these places, but I had clients that could not leave their country, and that was part of their job. I had models, top end models, that they had to be in Milan or they had to be somewhere, and they couldn't travel, so they weren't able to work.
Yeah.
They could remember there was a time when you couldn't get on a plane and fly to another country or fly to a different place, even here in the United States. So it wasn't too far off the mark, even then.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think one movie that comes to mind was called Outbreak. I think
yeah,
Dustin Hoffman was in that movie. And
yeah.
that was so real because people were actually wearing those suits in the hospital. You see all that. So I would say that sometimes we are our own worst enemies.
We are. We are. I think that's the case with this thing, right? They say that this version of COVID came out of a lab somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So we kind of brought that on ourselves, as humans. So we got a lot of issues. We got a lot of greatness, but we got a lot of issues.
Yeah. Yeah,
and,
we do.
If we want to talk about it, we can. We got actually, what time is it? We always go past our hour.
Oh,
man.
we're good. We're good.
Okay.
It's coming up straight up.
Keep us on track a little bit.
Yeah, but that's all right. I'm good with that.
Yeah. So what else do people want to know? Any questions? Anything that came through that you got for them?
Well, the only thing that one person brought up to me, I bowl a lot, so everybody would tell me, I seen your show, and they all put in their 2 cents, but it's never a question, it's always a comment.
Okay, what's some of the comments?
And some of the comments were saying that one was funny. She said, I say, so does anxiety comes along with sex? And I said, I don't know, but that's a good question. Is that a comment or a question? Oh, I just want to know. So I sort of, in a roundabout way, said, are you having issues? I just came out and asked her that. She said, yes. I said, whoa. Okay, I will leave that one alone. I don't know what to say about that, but I told her the story about us with our round table when that joker called from Oklahoma. You remember that?
Hey, I don't even want to talk about that right now. So that's why I'm glad you screened these questions. Because you tried to pass it. You want to take that? I was like, no, I don't really want to take it. Maybe the state police needs to take that question, or anyway, people don't know the joke, but we thought that somebody could be possibly in duress, in that situation, and you got to be careful because with the amount of mental illnesses out there in the world, you just never know, right? But yeah, you got to be careful when you're dealing with mental illness, man, because that was a loaded question. Their anxiety could be connected to anything.
Yeah.
It depends on how you perceive it. Some people have anxiety just going outside their door, right?
Mhm.
So, obviously sex, whatever, that can cause anxiety, especially if there's an issue in terms of performance for some folks. It doesn't have to be, but there are sex therapists. I'm not one of them. So I don't,
I'm glad you put that disclaimer up there
don't
real
contact
quick.
me for, sex. Now I can help you with anxiety in general, but
Yeah.
that particular part, there are qualified professionals that deal with sex therapy. I'm not one of them. I don't deal with that, but there is help out there, so I would go to psychology today, as a resource and try to, find some help, and find somebody with a few years of experience in a particular area that you're looking for.
Yeah. There was one question about this lady about her kids. She has 3 kids, and she was telling me that 2 of them are gun ho, going to school and ready to go. No problem. That was a bad choice of words, gun ho, but they wanted to go to school. They couldn't wait to go to school. But the third one did not want to leave the house because of all the news. Because kids are bombarded with news nowadays. Everything back in the days, it wasn't as instant. This is instant. And that one just fought tooth and nails. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. And
Yeah.
and I said, well, I can't tell you, but he needs to talk to somebody. Basically, he needs to talk to somebody.
He does. The other thing too is we have to limit our exposure to news, especially to children, right? Um, when you sit there and you're watching all the news continue to, talk about the situation and what's happening, and how many times did we see the police officers in the hall in Uvalde, right?
Yeah.
How many times do we see and hear the stories and all that? And kids are listening, and kids have very active imaginations. And then, we have to kind of filter that and help them to understand, even things we don't maybe understand, right?
Yeah.
But it's necessary the kids go to school. I had my child out of school for a few years, but being homeschooled during the pandemic. And either way it goes, there's challenges and harms and whatnot. But I highly recommend that a child is dealing with that type of anxiety and going to school, that they talk to somebody. They talk to someone to kind of help them. And a lot of these schools, I have to commend a lot of the schools for taking some measures to try to make the schools a lot safer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money being spent. There's a lot of administrators working hard overtime, trying to, create a safer environment for, the kids to be in. But I think we just have to do our part too, as citizens, to make sure that we make a safer society. And I think we're starting to have a little more traction in those conversations in terms of, banning assault rifles and all that type of stuff. And, I don't know if that necessarily is the answer, but the access to them definitely is, right?
Yeah.
The right people and maybe even, I don't know. There's so many of these things out in the world, in the community. I think we just have to go about it a different way. I think we have to increase the legislation against people that sell those assault weapons. And then if something happens, the charges of the people around the people that knew that this person had a mental health issue and still allowed them access to, an assault.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I got to get this straight and right. It was on the news that some credit card companies are now starting to track people who buy guns. Now,
Yeah, that just came out.
yeah.
That they're starting to track purchases when it comes to firearms. I think that is, some people are going to be like, "Oh no, that's Big Brother watching you." I said, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what needs to be happening."
So,
Not only, and that's only one tier of what needs to
right.
happen. Not only does it need to be tracked, but we need to connect. We need to have this database of people that have homicidal ideation and that's been diagnosed, and that needs to be put in that same database that the law enforcement has if a crime's committed,
So
right?
basically, if somebody go in there and show an ID saying they're 21. And when they make that purchase with their credit card, it shows that they're 18. I'm just saying that hypothetically. That'll put up a red flag right then and there, right?
Well, not necessarily. Yeah, they're 18, but if they've had homicidal ideation by a therapist, and then they go in and try to purchase a gun, they should be red flagged.
Yeah.
You know, we have the ability, we have the technology, we're just not doing it. And that's the type of thing I would like to see. Like, once a person is diagnosed with homicidal ideation, I don't think they should ever have access to an assault style weapon, ever. And some forms of suicide. You know, we have to figure that out, right? Through legislation and working with mental health professionals, because there is a thing by death by suicide, right? Where people, you know, law enforcement take them out because they're scared to do it.
Yeah.
But in the process, they may take out somebody else, you know, or law enforcement, right? So that's definitely a law enforcement issue. Then you've got people that have, and when I looked at the young man who committed the atrocities in Ukraine. Oh, I'm looking at two things. In Uvalde,
yeah,
there was homicidal ideation that had presented, right? In the case, well, pretty much a lot of these cases, if you look at them, there were opportunities for someone to say, okay, this person is presented with homicidal ideation, they should never have access to a gun. If that would have been red flagged when he turned 18, he went and go and purchase those 2 assault rifles in that shop, that his name would have come up as having homicidal ideation and him not being able to purchase it, maybe the situation would be different.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the tragedy of it. We have the technology, we have the means to do stuff like that, but somehow we're confusing rights that are wrong. I think that's a t-shirt, rights that are wrong, right?
Yeah.
Somebody write that down. And if I see my shirt, we got proof. I'm coming for my money, right? But anyway, so
I got a question to ask you, because it's a ripple down effect. So what happens in a shooting like the one in Uvalde? It just doesn't hurt the immediate family. It trickles down to all the members of the family when that happens. It affects everybody.
Well, in Uvalde, it affects everybody. Uvalde is such a small community.
Yeah.
The ripple effects of that is everybody. But, you know, and it's not just Uvalde. We're talking about Uvalde because that's the most recent things. What about all the shootings in Chicago?
Yeah.
Okay. What about all the shootings nationwide? You know, all these situations need to be looked at. Uvalde was the most graphic one recently. And, you know, like I said, being there and actually have gone to Uvalde and seen, you know, Robb Elementary personally, it's a feeling that's hard to express, right? And if you have any idea, because I'm actually trying to pull up the picture I took, that memorial went on for a week, but there's a sign that was right on the fence that said ban assault rifles.
Yes.
Right? And, you know, I know we're going to see that again in history books. I know we're going to see that in, you know, some decisions are going to be made because of these situations, because of what's going on. You know, it's not sustainable. You know, it's really just not sustainable that, you know, we get these firearms to be free. That's what they say, to protect our freedoms. But now we're imprisoned by it. Because, you know, when you go to a large event and you hear a firecracker, you hear something going off, you hear a car backfire, people are about ready to trample each other.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if this is it, if this is your time to deal with an active shooter situation, you know, and it just goes on and on. So we're at a crossroads and we're going to have to make some changes. And the credit card thing, I think, is just one of the steps, but we're going to have to take some more of those steps.
Yeah, which are going to be up to the Congress and Senate to actually sit down and even locally we have to do that too, because basically they gave up. They leaving it up to the states to make a decision, and some of them not exactly too bright.
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know if it's not that they're too bright, but I think they might be too greedy, right?
Yeah.
It's money out there if you want to protect the NRA. But like one of my buddies who's a federal agent said, I'd rather protect second graders than the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
It's to the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I believe that the Second Amendment should be there. I think it should be modified. Everything in there should be protected. But I think right now we've got a pretty big loophole right now that has to be addressed. But the thing is, I don't really. We talk about senators, we talk about congressmen, we talk about legislators, but you know what? We put them there. So the problem isn't necessarily them. Yeah, it is them in a sense, but the problem is really us and what we allow them to get away with, right? If we decide that we want to make these changes and we understand that we're being somewhat misled or brainwashed to think that we have to have this arsenal of weapons on standby.
Yeah.
We're the most overprotected, or we're the most armed society in the world, and we're still the most violent society in the world. So something ain't working out right. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got all these guns out here, but we're also the most unsafe. So obviously that line of thinking must not be working, right? If you logically think it through, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
We got to make some changes, and we got to hold these politicians accountable because it's affecting everyone, including our babies.
Yes.
That I can't, we got to have a delusional mindset. That is a mental health issue when a large group of people are that delusional. We've got to do something about it, and I think it's slowly but surely going to happen. I don't know, what the suspense date is on it, but I do believe we're going to have to move to it because it's not sustainable for us to be this unstable. It's just not.
Now I'm gonna switch gears on this right here since you brought that up. American people got to realize this is a democracy, and there's certain elements out there that want this to be a dictatorship. They want to demand what they want, and they got to realize it's not working out like that. You can't demand what you want. Like, I hate to get political, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. You got governors, senators demanding Biden to turn around and take away paying off those college loans, saying it's going to hurt jobs and all that. There's so many jobs out there. What is it hurting? It's not hurting it. To me, it's not, because people are begging people to come to work for them. So it has nothing to do with jobs, but I'm a firm believer. If you took out a loan, you ought to pay for it. That's just my belief. But there are hard times, and I understand, but for them to jump up and say, we demand you take that away, dude, you can't do that.
Well, you got to understand where a lot of this came from, right? So Betsy DeVos, who was the Secretary of Education under the Trump administration, who had, I believe, very little education. So how she got the position of the Secretary of Education says a lot. Her stance was that they shouldn't have loan forgiveness. Now, it's interesting coming from somebody who married a man who became a multimillionaire and created all his money through Amway. Yeah, of course, to you, maybe loan forgiveness may not be a big deal,
right?
Because you're wealthy. But I never really did get the line of logic, and I still don't really get the line of logic that people that are so weighed down with trying to better themselves shouldn't have some relief so they could free up more money from paying off these school loans to putting that money back into the economy. I mean, it's a very simple correlation. If I have more money to spend, I'm going to spend more money in the economy. But when you're trying to enforce the oppression of economic oppression, then you're not ready to release that, because that gets too many people closer to that higher bracket that can control other things.
Yeah.
Or they can, it's a tight-knit club, right, of people that have a lot of disposable income. And a lot of people don't want a lot of people getting in that club, because then it's not exclusive as much, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of people don't talk about it as much, but there is a thing called economic oppression. And to not assume that some people don't want you oppressed economically, I think would be a little bit naive and ignorant. Okay. So when they say things like, oh, it's going to be bad for this, that, and the other, well, those people that usually feel that way, they probably are in that club of having, a lot of extra money. Now, I'm not hurting, right, financially, but I see the logic of allowing people relief from school loans. At least these are the people that took the initiative to get an education to try to better their life. Why not give them a break? We gave people that weren't working and no education money just to pay their bills.
Look at the auto industry we build out. We build them
yeah,
out.
I mean, we don't have a problem bailing out multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar organizations, right? Well, some people did. Some people, and it's funny, there's so many same people that don't want people to get loans forgiven. They didn't want GM to have their debt forgiven. But then when Obama pushed for that, but then when it worked, they shut up. They're like, oh, you shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have done it. Well, now it worked. So because of GM and all the things that would have collapsed, if GM would have collapsed, they sustained it.
Yeah.
Why can't the American people be sustained the same way in terms of education? I'm not saying, and then there's some other things that we need to talk about too, but definitely with education. We sent trillions of dollars now over to Ukraine, right?
I was going to say the same thing. We could send that money and vote on that right away. And
right.
The student loan forgiveness is just a drop in the bucket compared to what we sent over to Ukraine.
Yeah, we a lot. When you think about us in a way, it reminds me of some like the rappers. We want to look rich for the world, but in reality, we're broke.
Yeah.
We want to buy the Phantom. We want to buy the Bentley to show the world, hey, we got money. We got access to money. But in reality, there ain't nothing in the refrigerator. We barely, the house isn't owned. None of that stuff, right? So we need to flip that. We need to take care of home first. And look at some of these other countries, right, that are doing some of that stuff. China is seriously putting a hurt on us in a lot of ways. Why? Because most of their teachers make about 6 figures. So if you've got the best teaching your children, not saying that we don't have the best, we have phenomenal teachers, don't get me wrong, but they're just not appreciated.
Yeah.
So some of the very talented people that will want to be teachers have to choose other professions because, I don't know if I want to go to college for all those years and still be on food stamps, which was the case in my hometown in Grand Rapids at one point. Teachers had to go on food stamps. Of course, there's going to be some deficiencies in education. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not I'm not just beating up on Grand Rapids. This was the case in many cities.
Right.
Right. So we've got to get our priorities straight. We can send all these trillions of dollars overseas. What about right here at home? And this isn't a new narrative. We were watching that. Was that Soul in the City?
Mm-hmm.
And we were so concerned about sending. We heard some of the folks in there, it's a narrative that's been going on 70s and before. We're so concerned about what's going on externally, trying to get to the moon when we haven't even helped out the people in the hood.
Yep. Exactly.
You know, and I know they say, oh, these programs are wasteful and all that. What about the people that they helped? You know, we wasted, you know, we had a lot of waste in government spending. But I never say, you know, we're wasting anything when we're helping our kids, helping our community, helping America, because that is the reality. We are only as strong as our weakest denominator. So if anybody's hurting, you know, some of our most brilliant people have come from the hood, come from the ghetto.
Yep.
So what about the untapped resources there that we're not educating and feeding and letting them know that, hey, we care about you too. All right. So we need to get there.
See,
You know, I feel like I'm preaching right now. I don't know. Maybe I need to have a
but see,
pulpit
those
instead
are
of an office.
that's what we call opportunities. They need the same opportunity that everybody else have. They have that opportunity to go to the best schools. And you got people in these cities that they want to get out, but they don't have the funds, they don't have the opportunity to do all that. But like you said, if we could send this money overseas to help them out, I was always told you help your house out first before you help anybody else out. So
Well, you
United
know,
States is our house.
yeah, it is. The United States is our house, and we got some house work to do. I mean, it's looking pretty bad right now.
Yeah.
We got some work to do. But I think again, it might, you know, some of this stuff has been going on so long, you have to wonder if it is not intentional. You know, economic exploitation is also about access to quality education, access to quality food, resources, stores, all of that. And we can look at it. We can look at, you know, there's some amazing things happening in places like Detroit, where they're now taking some of that abandoned areas and turning it into, you know, farmland.
Right.
They're getting people access to quality food, quality, you know, resources and things of that nature. So we can be innovative, right? But even that requires income and grants. So yeah, there might be some waste in some areas, but let's start looking at the areas where it is really working and fund those. You know, there are some really great programs, some schools. There was one up in New York. I can't think of the name of it. A guy who, you know, revolutionized part of the educational system up there. And there's like a waiting list to get these kids into the schools he has up there in New York. I cannot think of the name right now. I've talked about it for years. So I have to see if I can find the name of that program. The Hershey School. A lot of people don't know about that.
Oh, yeah.
Or aren't we sending more kids to programs like that are in the inner city?
Yeah.
You know, we've got the answers. The question is, why aren't we putting more resources into that instead of sending them overseas? And we got to fight for freedom right here in the United States still.
In our cities and in our
you know, we're fighting
neighborhoods.
for democracy. We've been, you know, Black folk, we've been fighting for democracy for a long time, man. we've been fighting for democracy, Civil War, you know, even before. Went to the Alamo. Do you know there is an African American soldier that was in the Alamo? Alamo. So you go down there. If you think I'm lying, come to San Antonio. Go look in Alamo. If you get that tour, you can fight. There was an African American man fighting for freedom, had just got freed and fighting for freedom.
See, part of history we don't know about.
You know, oh, actually, I don't even know if he was free back then. I don't know if it was. I don't know. I think slavery. Now, it had to be areas that were still enslaved back then. You know, but he was fighting for freedom while we overtly weren't free.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's past time for us to get access to the same qualities and resources. Access. I'm not talking about just giving, but you know, we can't talk about reparations too. We can talk about that because we're the only race of people that have had something as horrible as slavery and not received monetary damages for such a thing. So yeah, I mean, you know, hope my listeners aren't too offended by that. If they are, sorry, that's how I feel about it. You know, and On top of that, then you can also not just get the money, but also be proactive and learn what you can do with that money. Purchasing real estate, purchasing, put money aside for the next generation.
Yeah.
Right. Doing things like that, getting mental health and physical health lined up, because it don't make sense to put money on already a sick person mentally, because then what's going to happen? I think Dave Chappelle had a show about what would happen if reparation. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh right now because all these images are coming back.
Dave Chappelle. Yeah.
Listen, Dave Chappelle, one of my favorite comedians, but also an activist. I'm gonna go ahead and call him what he is. He's an activist. You might not like a lot of his stances or whatever, but he's working through a lot of issues as an African American man trying to understand this new landscape we're in. He's got some things, but he's also one of the funniest guys you can listen to, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, but off of Dave Chappelle. Hopefully, if he hears this, I can get some tickets or something.
Yeah.
The show or something, help a brother out. But anyway,
Yeah.
so with that being said, I think we just have to really start understanding the context of how we got here. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I think we don't have access to a lot of mental health issues and mental health services. And we have to break that paradigm that we don't need to go see somebody if something is wrong psychologically. We've got to get past that. Since we're talking about mental health issues and in my last 2 minutes, we've got to get past here where we think we got it, where we can handle it. Well, we got it and we can handle it until we can't. And we got to quit being reactive and wait till we get to a breakdown before we get help. We already know how that plays out physically. We already know how that works in your car. You don't wait till the car breaks down to service it.
Yep.
You better put some oil in that thing. You better pay attention to your gauges. Those signs of anxiety that we talked about a little while ago, that's your body's way of flashing that red light. When you're not sleeping at night, when you're over-focused, when you're irritable unnecessarily, that's signs that, hey, something isn't right. And if you stop paying attention to those lights, what happens? Depression, other mental health issues.
Yes.
And then you end up getting into, possible suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation or road rage, which is homicidal ideation. Somebody cuts you off and you're ready to blow their head off.
Yeah. You're right. You're so right.
With that being said, brother, I got to go. I got to get to a meeting here. But hopefully this was insightful for somebody. It was definitely fun. And thank you for having me on. Thank you for everybody listening. And we'll try it again next week.
Okay, I'm gonna leave with this one thought right here.
Yeah.
I forget where I got it from. I remember after that, do unto others as you shall have them do unto you.
Hey, what about our other ones? Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying.
There you go.
All right. See you later.
All right, Joseph, appreciate it.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, bye.